going to be another amazing 2 hours. We did an extremely amazing 3 hours last week on this subject, the murder, the assassination, the coup d'etat that occurred in broad daylight in plain view in these formerly United States of America. Last program on the 29th is available at Rense for your pleasure, edification, and downright jaw-dropping shock anytime you'd like to hear it. It's also available on ReverseSpeech.com at David John Oates' website, as will tonight's program be. We're going to do 2 hours tonight to pick up the remaining reversals from key players that we didn't get to last time, and to be with us and validate this, and who is still, I'm sure, smiling, at least inside, about the results that David Oates has found with reverse speech, is the world's preeminent JFK assassination researcher and writer, Jim Marrs. Are you there, James?
C.
What?
C. I'm here.
Did you say C?
C.
Does that mean there are that many illegal Mexicans going by your house that you've been picking up the language?
No, that just means in Tejas we there's lots of Hispanic stuff.
Well, Hispanic stuff is fine, but illegal immigrants, I draw the line.
Well, no,
now,
nobody illegal here. They've been Hispanics have been part of Texas history ever since one Seguin and his boys fought at the Alamo.
Yeah, I know. Well, they were here illegally too, though. Remember?
No, they were Mexican citizens, just like the Texicans were. We all
I'm teasing you.
Santa Ana to take a hike.
I'm teasing you. All right, now. Just a comment or two, Jim, on what we heard last Tuesday. Shocking, jaw-dropping, amazing
incredible stuff. First off, I want to stress that the remote viewing that was done by Daz Smith and by Dick Algar has been absolutely incredible. But it's only one of at least 5 remote viewings that I personally know of. There's probably been more. Of some of the military-trained remote viewers who have looked at the Kennedy assassination, and what is gratifying to me is they've all said exactly the same thing that I concluded after all my years of study and research right here in the Texas area, and after having talked to many of the principals in the assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald's mother, his wife, Jean de Mohrenschildt, the de Mohrenschildts were the last friends of them. A lot of the first-hand witnesses like Charles Brim and Gene Hill, and the family. So
dozens and dozens and dozens.
Yeah, and so it all comes to the same thing. It was a coup d'etat. And this was carried out. The reason we don't know all about it to this day, I mean, if this was just Oswald and a few friends of his, or if this was even like some errant CIA agents, or maybe some Castro agents, or just some mob hitmen trying to get the pressure off the organized crime, like Kennedy and his brother were replying, well, we would have found out all this by now. It all would have come out after 50 years. The reason it's still being covered up, and all you have to, and it's not really covered up. It's all out there now. The problem is there is such tight control over the mass media today that you're never going to hear on this on CNN, CBS, NBC, you name it. It ain't going to be there because they totally control. There's now 5 corporations with interlocking ownership and directorships, which means a handful of people control everything we see and hear. In fact, I was contacted the other day, and somebody wanted to know about Disney. I started to run down the list of things that are owned by Disney, and they gasped. They couldn't imagine that there was that many radio, TV stations, advertising, movies, films,
newspapers,
studios,
you name it. Yeah,
book clubs, you name it. All owned by these just 5 corporations. And so you're not going to hear about this much anywhere else. But it just happens to be the truth, and it's the truth is everyone I know who is not somehow tied to the government, or who is not being paid off by somebody, or who is just not a drooling idiot, knows that there was a big conspiracy to kill Kennedy, and the reason that we don't know about it to this day officially is because it was done officially. It was done at the highest levels of power in this country. It's all come out now. Lyndon Johnson and his next-door neighbor and old buddy, J. Edgar Hoover, who ran the FBI, And don't get me going about the FBI, because they're still up to this stuff. They're stuff.
They are more than ever up to this stuff, I think.
Up to their necks and stuff. And one thing, for example, is we've all heard that Donald Trump talk about 9/11. When he does, he almost invariably mentions the dancing Muslims who were happy to see those towers go down. Well, folks, let me tell you,
that's
it was
code,
not Muslim.
folks.
It was Israeli.
He knows exactly what happened.
And of course he does, and he's covering. And the thing is, there's an FBI report now that actually covered all that, and it's classified. We can't see it, okay? But the little bit that they have made public makes clear that these Israelis, who were then quietly thrown out of the country, and part of about 200 Israeli spies that were thrown out of the country within a few months of 9/11. And in this report, what they have declassified, and it's now public, one of the dancing Israelis said, "We were there to document the event." So, in other words, excuse me, but that means they knew it was going to happen. And this really needs to be looked into, but the current government, I don't know what the deal is, but, they're not going to talk about it. It's another cover-up. And I guess it'll be another 50 years before we find out the truth of what happened in the worst terrorist attack and loss of life in U.S. history.
Indeed, indeed. Jim Marrs has been studying this, I think even before it happened. 52
I know
years.
It's going to happen, but
I'm kidding.
Yeah, but that's
52
true.
years.
I think what your meaning is that it is true that I met Jack Ruby and was in his club.
Oh, it's amazing what you did.
Several months before all this happened.
Yep, that's what I mean. And you heard, if you listen to the program, the 3 hours, you'll hear so much that it'll change your life. And for those of you who remember the coup d'etat, the brutal murder of this man, you will be finally at ease. You'll understand. Now, you could do so by reading Jim's book, Crossfire, which is the Bible. It explains it. But when you hear the speech reversals from all the principal players admitting that they were involved and talking about how it was done, you'll say, that's it. It all fits. It all fits. Dick Allgaier will be with us next hour, by the way. We have, again, put together 3 remarkable platforms here for you. Remote viewing, Jim Marrs, who is an aircraft carrier in and of himself, and the amazing David John Oates. David, welcome back, and again, congratulations on the last program, and we're looking forward to more of the same tonight.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. It's good to be back again. Yeah, last program was absolutely fantastic. I've been getting emails all week about it, from not a negative email in the whole bunch, just praising, some people thanking me, saying, "Oh, glad we finally know," and I, of course, I was pleased that what I found identically matched what the remote viewing sessions had found, and Jim Marrs's whole research. And I started this blind when I started the reversals, so this is just the plot that I managed to pull together from the reverse speech. So wish I had more tape recording, but I'm going to keep on this for a long time. So,
very good. I mean, it's truly. What is the word, Jim? I want closure. It's closure for people when they can understand what you've done, look at Dick Allgaier's work, and now to hear the real-time voices of these people back then speaking in reverse from their subconscious, telling the truth. They were in it.
Well, it's been said before, and it's very true, that it may be too late for justice, but it's never too late for the truth.
Well said.
Right.
Well said.
Yep.
All right, David, let's get going. So we have a lot to hear.
All
David,
right,
we're
so
going to hear reversals by some remarkable big names tonight. Go ahead.
Okay, well, look, I won't go over the ones we did last show, because you can go back and listen to them. So we'll just pick it up. So basically, the last show basically said Oswald was a patsy. That's what reversals verified. He knew about the plot 3 months beforehand. It was orchestrated by Hoover with full knowledge of Johnson, with key players in Washington all involved. And so what we'll do now is start looking at the key players in Washington, okay?
Very good. All right.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to move to, we'll just back up from last week, and this is George Bush giving the eulogy at Ford's funeral, and in that eulogy he brings up the Warren Commission. So it was this reversal that sent me on the hunt for other co-conspirators.
Okay. This is Bush 41. All right.
Yeah, Bush 41. Here we go.
Even the dark clouds of political crisis gathered over America. After a deluded gunman assassinated President Kennedy.
And I played this reversal last week and said the crime avoided Ike.
The crime avoided Ike. The crime avoided Ike.
And again.
The crime avoided Ike.
How very interesting. Because it did. Now, tell us what you showed last time with Eisenhower and.
Oh yeah, well we're going to play the Eisenhower reversals.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought to myself, does that mean that Eisenhower was involved but was never implicated? Because even at that stage, Bush was implicated as well as Nixon. I mean, they were all out in conspiracy theories for many, many years. You know, just have to search on YouTube to see this. But never once has there been a reference to Eisenhower. And so that got me researching Eisenhower. But before we go into Eisenhower, let me play the one other reversal from Bush on the Warren Commission. Talking about the Warren Commission. Here we go.
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but the Warren Commission report will always have the final definitive say on this tragic matter. Why? Because Jerry Ford put his name on it, and Jerry Ford's word was always good.
This guy's got a comedy writer, doesn't he?
He really does.
God, it's amazing.
Because especially what we know now is of all the people on the Warren Commission, Gerald Ford, who later became our only unelected president, he was appointed, by Nixon.
Yeah.
And then promptly pardoned Nixon of any crimes, past, present, or future.
What a shock that was,
Exactly. And so what most people don't realize is it's now well documented that Gerald R. Ford, that was his payoff, and his payoff for his appearance on the Warren Commission, where he was acting as a spy for the FBI, for J. Edgar Hoover, and reporting back to Hoover everything that the Warren Commission was doing so they could plan on how they could counter it.
Jim, have you been to my reverse speech page? This is exactly the plot I'm about to lay out.
No, I have not, and I'm sorry. I have followed your work, but I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, no, I was being a little bit facetious, really, but I'm just flabbergasted that me, who's known nothing about the assassination, is coming up with the same stuff you have. Anyway, this reversal says, and our man see the proof.
Man, see the proof.
Well, that's not very clear.
Man, see the proof.
Oh, yeah, it's there.
Man, see the proof.
Okay, Gerald Ford was their man. He was their man on the Warren Commission. And,
right.
And
that's not conspiracy theory. That's been well documented and accepted.
Right. Okay. So there we go. Okay. So then I went and looked at Eisenhower. We did Eisenhower last week, but we're going to repeat it because I didn't play all the reversals and it was so quick at the end of the show. So then I went and found a speech that Eisenhower did on the 22nd of November, the day JFK was assassinated.
Mrs. Eisenhower and I share the grief that Mrs. Kennedy must now feel. And we send to her our prayerful thoughts and sympathetic sentiments.
And this reversal said he had to miss.
Yes, miss. Yes, miss. Yes, miss.
And as I explained last week, the alleged assassin, well, one of them, only one, he was a safety shooter. The way I understand it, James Files was told not to hit Jackie Kennedy. Okay, so there you have that one.
So Eisenhower, for you listening, was fully briefed on this, although he wasn't a planner.
No.
He was told because of his stature. Sure.
Yes, he was fully briefed and had full knowledge. So here we have a next one on Eisenhower.
We did not know the president was dead We did not know when I got back here at that time that he was dead.
And this one says, there's a reason now.
There's a reason now. There's a reason now.
And again.
There's a reason now.
I've been looking for the reasons. Haven't found many of them in reverse, except I know they wanted Johnson to be president. I found that, but I don't know all the reasons yet. But like I say, this is going to be an ongoing investigation for me because I want to find them all out. It's just a matter of getting the right audio. You know, that's
right.
been the trouble. If I could get some of the other audio, I could get even more information. But I'll keep on looking. So, all right, so here's the next one.
But, matter of fact, we had the last message we had was one rather of hope.
Here he says, we sent terrible headache.
We sent terrible headache. We sent terrible headache. We sent terrible headache.
Which, you know, that's exactly what they did. A horrible headache.
Yeah.
A big one.
Yep.
And then here we have the other one. We've got...
Will the nation be all right in a few months ahead?
Oh, I'm not going to predict anything of that. I just say this. The American nation is a people of great common sense.
And here he says, I bring it in a kid.
I bring it in a kid. I bring it in a kid. I bring it in a kid.
See, my only thought on that one is Lee Harvey Oswald, who was 24, which to Eisenhower, he would have been a kid, you know.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
the American nation is a nation of great common sense. Except when it's lied to.
yeah,
Then
right.
how can common sense prevail? It's
Right.
you get lied to over and over again, you're going to start believing it. That's what happens.
Right. Okay, so now here's an important reversal. This is, notice very carefully what he says in the forward. I didn't play this one last show because we ran out of time. So listen carefully what he's saying forwards.
We are a nation that where our freedoms are allowed or are observed in such a way that everybody is ready everybody is, you might say, capable of doing this if he's ready to put his own life on the line.
And backwards he says, now we're not.
Now we're not. Now we're not.
No, we're not.
Now we're not. Totally incongruent reversal. Of course they're not, because they've just been overtaken by a coup d'etat. So our freedoms have gone as of 22nd of November, 1963.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Now here we have Eisenhower talking to LBJ. This is LBJ asking Eisenhower to come to his inaugural, okay, in December 1464. This conversation took place.
Now to come back all the way just after we'd gotten out there, and we had to get our children out for the holidays.
Okay, now the first half of this reversal is faint because his voice drops right down. It says, I made you, that's the deal.
And that's the deal.
Yeah.
You hear that?
Very clear.
Okay, you're going to hear other references to the deal as we continue playing the reversals today. And I made you President Johnson. I put you where you are.
Yeah.
That's the deal. I mean, that's what we set up. Okay?
Yeah.
And another reversal on Eisenhower. Here's the forwards.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, and I am most deeply appreciated as you speak. Thank you, Mr. President. Only because of my concern for naming, strength, and health. I understand that.
And here he says, just remembered, nurse the gun result.
Wow.
And my interpretation of this is the result of the gun was that Johnson became president, and Eisenhower was just giving me a little reminder. Don't forget what happened. We made you president.
Take care of business. Do it properly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, there we go. So, I think those reversals implicate Eisenhower as certainly having knowledge of, or whether he was a part of it, I don't know. So, but certainly he had full knowledge, is what those reversals tell us. All right, now we have a good reversal, actually. A nice, honest politician, Harry Truman. And here's Harry Truman talking about the death of JFK.
He was a good man, an able president, and he did a good job. And it's too bad that those things have to happen.
And reversal says...
What an odd statement forward, yeah.
It is an odd statement forward. You're quite right, actually.
Too bad those things have to happen. Well... Like somebody forgot
Anyway,
to take the trash
Russell's-
out. Jeez.
Yeah. Russell says the battles that he had fought was our good spirit. So he's being nice.
No,
Yeah,
I
yes.
understand that. Kennedy, rightly, wrongly, truly believed he was doing things to the benefit of the public of this country. So you can see what he's saying there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so Truman, who incidentally was a Democrat, is saying something quite nice about Kennedy, another Democrat. All right, now we go to
David, can you turn it's not bad at all, but you seem like you're almost overdriving the mic. If you could turn yourself down a little bit or back off from the mic a drop, I think would be a little bit better.
Sure, how's that? I've turned the mic down.
That's very nice. Thanks, yeah.
Okay. All right, sorry about that. Okay, now we go to a man who's knee-deep into the whole thing, Gerald Ford. Okay, so here he is in 1967 talking about the Warren Commission and was there ever a conspiracy in New Orleans? So here we go.
He was a good man, an able president.
Oops, that's not Gerald Ford. Sorry about that. Okay, Ford. Where's the one I'm looking for? This is this one here. Here we go.
Was the possibility of a conspiracy in New Orleans ever even mentioned during the investigation?
Oh, yes. The Warren Commission made a tremendous effort to interrogate every possible individual who allegedly had any connection with the assassination.
And this reversal says, "I
Who was that, Gerald Ford?
Yeah, that's Gerald Ford. Yes.
Well, and it's absolute nonsense. All of you that are listening, if you'll think about the images that you saw there when the shooting took place in Dealey Plaza, most of you will recall the family that were laying there on the foot of the grassy knoll shielding their children. That was Bill and Gail Newman. They were probably the closest people to
the
Kennedy,
shooters. Yeah.
To both. Yeah, they were in between the shooter on the grassy knoll and Kennedy in his car. They were never called to testify to the Warren Commission.
I hope they were left alone.
They were never called. They were called to testify to the Garrison investigation. And then when they got to New Orleans, their cab got hit by a car, and it was almost like there was an assassination attempt on them. But then they lived in Dallas. They still live in Dallas, as a matter of fact, and they still tell the same story. Within an hour or so, Bill Newman was on television in Dallas, and they asked him where the shots came from. He said the shots came from up behind me, what you call the knoll. So, he's told the truth from the get-go, and they were never questioned by the Warren Commission. There were 15 railroad workers on the overpass, and they all said shots came from the grassy knoll. Only one of them was questioned by the Warren Commission, and they said he was mistaken.
Wow.
So don't give me this story that they examined everything they could and investigated. It was not an investigation. It was a cover-up.
Yep.
Huge.
Well, Russell says, "I damn the sheriff now." Here we go. Oops. Right.
And
again. I thought he was referring to Jim Garrison, but it could be authority in general, he's talking about New Orleans Force investigating every connection. I damn the sheriff now. I'm shoving the official reports aside. I'm not listening to the evidence that Jim Garrison has brought or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so. All right, and then we have Ford again, and here he's talking about LBJ.
Mm-hmm.
There were 7 of us at the insistence of President Johnson. We came up with what I think are 2 very important decisions.
And here he simply says, I make you.
I'll make you. I'll make you. I'll make you.
Which is the same term that Eisenhower used. It's also
Interesting.
the same term that Hoover used. Exactly the same words on 3 people, implying, I put you in office. I've made you where you are. And there's one of the reasons for the assassination, the coup d'etat, the
That's
change
funny.
of government.
Pecking
Yeah.
order. That's odd.
Yep. So that's 3 times I've heard the word I make you. Each time talking about Lyndon Johnson forwards. Okay? All right. Then we've got a reversal that I don't really know what it means, but we'll play it anyway. Jim may have a clue, as has had with lots of
And
other
who
ones.
is this?
Sorry?
Who is this one?
Who's
Of-
up next,
of-
David?
Oh, this is still from Ford. Talking about the Warren Commission. Okay.
A business which the late president knew had to be done, and who would understand the process probably better than any president we've had in recent years.
And bring this unit.
Creating this unit.
I don't know what that means. I really don't know what that means.
No.
No.
Got it on my website as meaning unknown. All right, okay. Now here we have Ford talking about Garrison. Then we're going to move on to his testimony towards the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Okay, so this is Ford talking about Jim Garrison. Obviously, he didn't like Jim Garrison, as you'll see from the reversal.
I can't judge the alleged reasons why Mr. Garrison doesn't want to turn it over, but I am amazed that any public official, any place in the country, would refuse to cooperate with the federal government in this regard.
And here he said, drag his sin out in the view.
Drag it and out in the zero. Drag it and out in the zero.
Very clear.
Drag it and out in the zero.
And he's just having a go at Jim Garrison. Why he did that, I'm not sure, but he did. So,
Oh.
okay. All right. Now, here we have reversals on his testimony to the House Select Commission on Assassinations. And the first one is an absolute doozy. Here we go.
It might have been helpful to the commission, but I don't think it would have altered in any way the final recommendations or conclusions. I think we might have been helped by that information, but I don't think it would have varied our commission's conclusions.
And here he says, I'm the sham that made it up.
Oh, my. That's hilarious.
I mean, what can you say? That says it all, doesn't it?
See, he always had the patina of a rather simple man, and that is a grossly blatant truth. Just amazing.
Yeah, clear as day. He was their man on the commission, according to Bush, and I'm the sham that made it up. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. The reversal says it all. The whole Warren Commission was a lie. It was a con, and Ford was into it up to his neck. As innocent and as nice a president as he seems to be, he wasn't.
No. Evil comes in all sorts of different packages, colors and sizes, and his was a rather simple-minded evil. Evil as it gets, though.
Yep.
All these people, excuse me, David, all these people, Jim, co-conspirators, they might as well pull the trigger. That's the way I look at it. They all had their hands in there. They all had their fingers on the trigger as well, either before or after the fact. It doesn't matter. They're killers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Under the law, if you participate in a murder, even though you don't commit the murder, but you know about it, or you drive the car, or you hide evidence, or you cover up later, that's an accomplice after the fact. You're as guilty as the person that actually commits the murder. So as far as I'm concerned, everyone who knew, especially in advance, and then even the ones who knew only afterwards that this was a big plot and that this involved lots of very powerful, wealthy people, they're accomplices. They are, and they're guilty.
Yep.
And a lot of those people are still alive.
I agree 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed, Jim, as to how closely what I found is matched up with what you found. I'm just...
Well, because you're looking at the subconscious, which, as I understand it, really cannot lie.
Right.
And I've been looking at facts for 50 years, and so I think we just coming from totally different avenues, we have still converged on the truth.
Yeah, that's right.
Well said.
It was
Perfect.
a coup d'etat. I don't know why people aren't marching on Washington demanding they open the records.
Oh, Americans don't have it anymore, David. There's not much left.
Yeah, well, I'm just stunned.
These people are young.
If all this had come out in 1965 or 69,
and you would have had
70,
that,
or maybe even 75 or 6, there would have been a huge uproar. There would have been perhaps even a revolution. But they've had 50 years now to dumb us down, drug us out, undereducate us. I'm not sure that we're just not the same America we were.
No.
Yeah,
but thank God that you've done this, Jim, and now David's come in and the remote viewing as well. We can close the book on who done it now. We know. It's a told story, and it all validates each other. All the work is now a perfect match, and that's just incredible.
Yep. And like I said, I'm going to keep on going. I still got unanswered questions, I'm just going to hunt down the right recordings, So. All right, next one on Ford. Here he is on the House Select Committee of Assassinations.
The Commission had an obligation to follow a dual policy. On the one hand, to get maximum voluntary cooperation from all federal agencies, including the FBI, and on the other hand, to be insistent that the agencies respond and cooperate wherever and however the Commission demanded. The latter requirement may have led some agencies to believe that there was an adversarial relationship.
This one simply says, there was a deal.
The word the deal. The word the deal.
And again.
The word the deal.
Yeah.
Second time we've heard of the deal. Eisenhower said there was a deal, talking to Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Here we have, I think we had a deal too on Hoover, if I remember correctly.
I believe you're right.
Yeah. So there we go. So we got...
Maybe that should be the next title of my book, wrapping it all up. We just call it The Deal.
Why not?
The Deal.
Absolutely. Yep.
If you did Jim, if you did another book on this, although Crossfire is the definitive work on it,
I don't think I could top that.
I don't think so. What you could do is a real short essay form and include a CD of these reversals in the book and the remote viewing, and you could that would certainly be a marketable product. Case closed.
That would be pretty interesting.
Case closed. The deal revealed. Whatever.
Okay, next one along. We're still on Gerald Ford. Here we go.
The FBI, and I use that as an example, undertook a very extensive investigation. I don't recall how many agents, but they had a massive operation to investigate everything.
All right, this reversal raises a couple of questions. Share with Bobby's hand.
Share of his hand. Share of his hand.
Oh.
Share of his hand.
Kind of a surprise.
I'm pretty sure he's talking about Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have set it as a class project from a class to investigate the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. So that'll take place over the next few months. So I don't know. There he is, Bobby Kennedy. I don't know what that means or anything, but there it is. Okay. All right. Now he's talking about conspiracy theorists.
Public acceptance of the Warren Commission findings has diminished for several reasons. Number one, the critics who have obtained the widest publicity have either deliberately or negligently misled the American people by misstating facts.
And here he says, idiots sin.
Idiots sin.
Idiots sin. Idiots sin.
I don't know. He just doesn't like the conspiracy theorists, which I'm not surprised he doesn't like the conspiracy theorists.
Right.
All right, here we have. This is an interesting one. Jim, you'll have some comments on this. He's talking about the murder of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit.
In my opinion, no investigation of the tragic assassination of President Kennedy can be complete without including an investigation of the murder of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit.
And here he says, want to share the powerful, give doubt here. And again. Okay, so that tells me that the murder of J.D. Tippit is a red herring, and he's bringing it up to bring doubt onto the whole thing. Want to share the powerful? That's the cabal, the consortium, whatever you want to call them. He's involved in it. And why would the death of J.B. Tippit be a red herring, Jim?
Well, because they were quite effective early on in saying, well, Oswald must have killed the president, because why else would he have killed the policeman? But I would say today, in light of everything we know, particularly the fact that back at the time, knowing what I now know, I could produce 3 separate witnesses, including a man that was a young kid then, but he went on to become an evangelist or a religious radio broadcaster in Dallas, and the assistant manager of the theater, Butch Burroughs, and another fellow. All 3 of these people could have testified under oath in court that they encountered Lee Harvey Oswald inside the Texas Theater just before and during the time that Officer Tippit was shot. So Oswald did not shoot Officer Tippit. And since at a certain level they undoubtedly knew this, then, see, they could have used the reverse argument, saying, well, since Oswald didn't shoot the cop, maybe he didn't shoot the president.
Right, I see. Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right, let's move on to Richard Nixon, Eisenhower's vice president, and right up to his neck in the whole thing. Okay, wow. So Nixon. Let's go down to Nixon. Okay, the first one, unfortunately, is really bad audio. He's talking to his secretary. I'll tell you what he says forward, because it's hard to hear the forwards. It says, sure, his head was really blown off. Then Nixon said they didn't say so in the news, though, and then his secretary says, yeah, they did. So here's the forwards.
Yeah. Sure, his head was really blown off. They didn't say so. Yeah, they did.
David, transcribe the forward again for us, please. Okay. What she says, and he says, and she says what?
Okay, right. His secretary says, sure, his head was really blown off. Then Nixon says, they didn't say so in the news, though. Then his secretary says, yeah, they did. Here, let's play it.
And what is the day of this?
This is, you know what? The date wasn't on the date, I think it was when Nixon was president. The date wasn't on the recording.
All right.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Do you want to play the forwards again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll turn the volume up a bit.
Yeah. Sure, his head was really blown off. They didn't say so. Yeah, they did.
And then Nixon says backwards, we just did it.
Oh, yes, it did.
In other words, not we just did it last week. We just did it. It was something that was done, and we did it.
Yep. That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Now, here we have This is Nixon in Dallas the day before the assassination. Okay, and he gave a little press conference, and here he is.
As you recall, then we were going to do something about Castro in Cuba. We were going to do something about American prestige abroad, and also about sort of permanent unemployment.
Okay, so here he is the day beforehand in Dallas, and backwards he says, "The crime that I bring, it must remove inaugural." Now remember we had Hoover saying inaugural hit? So here we have the crime that I bring, it must remove inaugural.
You hear
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, same thing we got from before, inaugural hit. Kennedy shouldn't have even been inaugurated in the first place, these guys believe. Mm-hmm. And the crime that I bring, he knows all about it. He's in Dallas. And, I mean, I don't know, there was a rumor of some big meeting on the night beforehand with Johnson and some others. You know more about that than I do, Jim. But,
well, you know, guys, I think I think both of those comments may be relating to a future inauguration. Because here was the thing. Even after the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs and everything else, the polls in the fall of 1963 showed Kennedy was, had like a 65 to 70% approval rating. Everybody loved him. And he was going to be a shoo-in in 64. In 64, being a lame duck president and having served already one term, he would have been in a position to really affect some changes. So this really worried the powers that be. And I think what they were worried about was another inauguration. He gets inaugurated, in 64, then they're really going to have a problem. Now, think about this, too. His assassination was on November the 22nd, 1963, the very end of November. Had 1 month, December, the Christmas holidays, and they would have gone into 1964, the election year. Now, it would be an election year, and we can see this from the context of right now, because this is election year. And think about it. On the news, on the radio talk shows, the election is a big deal. So going into 64, the media would have doubled up on Kennedy. The public would have been focusing more on him. It would have been more and more difficult to pull off a big assassination plot. Their last chance was towards the end of 1963, and we mentioned on the earlier program that there appeared to have been an assassination attempt that was blocked in Chicago. There may have been another one in Miami. So it was getting towards the drop-dead deadline, pardon the pun, and they were towards the end of the year. They had to move, and Dallas was probably their last chance. Because it was the last stop. Well, right after Dallas, they were supposed to go to LBJ's ranch down near Austin, and then for that weekend, and then back to Washington, and that was the last big public appearance that Kennedy had scheduled for that year. So this was kind of their last chance.
Wow.
All right. Well, it all makes sense.
Very good information and correct. Yep, absolutely correct.
All right. I'll update my conclusion on my website about that reversal now that I have that information. I didn't know that. Okay, all right. So still on Nixon here. Here we have him forwards.
We find that on all of these issues, there's been no action.
And this is still on Dallas the day before. And he says backwards, Mr. Bush is evil.
Mr. Bush is evil. Mr. Bush is evil.
And again. So there we got Bush in again. Is that Preston Bush or Herbert Bush? I don't know. But,
who was that recording again? I'm sorry.
That was Nixon, Richard Nixon.
It didn't sound like him. It sounded like he was too youthful almost.
Well, he was still young back then. No, that's definitely Nixon. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he just mentions the name Bush.
Yeah.
And this is about the third reference. We heard him twice last week, and here we have him again.
Oh, he was there.
I just couldn't find any audio on Bush up until I looked all over YouTube and the internet. The first I could really find of him was his inauguration, and I did did analyse that tape and found nothing about the assassination on there. So a little bit disappointing. I would like to have some more reversals.
Well, he was a spook for a long time, and he knew probably not to commit to public appearances very often. He was keeping a low profile.
Yeah, well, he's certainly got no audio. The only thing I found on him was that Warren Commission one, where I got the crime avoided eye. All right, so here we have Nixon. This is after the assassination.
Today, millions of people throughout the world are trying to find words adequate to express their grief and their sympathy to his family.
And here he says, I have secret here.
I have secret here. I have secret here.
There he goes.
No, I bet he did.
Yep. And that secret comes out when Ford pardons Bush. No, Nixon. You talked about that when we started. And I've got a recording on Ford pardoning Nixon, which links it direct back to the coup. So,
the secret he mentioned there would be what, Jim?
Oh, well, any number of things, but probably the biggest secret was the coup that took place in '63.
In other words, he's letting on that he knew all about the coup, because I think he was alluding to the big, massive events of the past. Yeah, I've got a secret. I know what went on.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, his subconscious was saying I have a secret, but chances are he had secrets, plural.
Oh, sure he did. Sure.
Right. But he's talking forwards about the assassination, so that's where the reversal links to on the complementarity.
Okay.
All right, let's have a look at President Kennedy himself. And we have some interesting...
Now, you told me that it was very hard to find reversals on JFK.
Oh, yeah, almost impossible. He was... I did about 3 speeches on him in a row one night and didn't find a single reversal. So
now that's reminiscent of George W. Bush, who again was so invested in the scripts that were written for him, and I guess Jack Kennedy was really immersed in the message that was written for him by his speechwriters, that his own consciousness was sort of pushed to the side because he was focused, body and soul, on bringing those words to life.
Right. What does that mean? That he, in his subconscious, at least believed that what he was saying was all true?
Oh, yes. You'll be surprised when you see his reversals. His reversals are very congruent. He was a very congruent man. What he said is what he believed.
Apparently, he really exercised strict oversight and control over those speeches, Jim, and that would explain why.
Unlike some of the more modern puppets.
Unlike. yeah, totally unlike.
All right. Okay.
Coming up on about 2 minutes left, David, so you know.
Okay, we've got one more. Okay, we'll play one, then we'll move on. So here he is at the Democratic Convention, okay, and once he won the nomination. And listen to what he's saying forwards.
We know that our opponents will invoke the name of Abraham Lincoln on behalf of their candidate.
Okay, when he says Abraham Lincoln, he says backwards, then I try to warn you.
Then I try to warn you. Then I try to warn you.
Wow, perfect.
Interesting premonition right on Abraham Lincoln, another president who was assassinated.
Yeah.
We hear, then I try to warn you. Isn't that interesting?
That's fascinating. And forward, he was also saying, we know they're going to bring up the name of Lincoln, so in forward, he was kind of warning people too.
That's true. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was reading into it.
Oh, okay, right.
He was really committed to what he was saying forward, and I think it reflected subconsciously. And I do think that's primarily what he was doing. It's a mirror of what he was saying forward.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So it's a congruent reversal.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have time for one more?
Go ahead. Sure.
Okay. This is from his inauguration.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And here he says, they'll be watching in that void.
Who's that?
And again. Can you hear that on the audio?
Yeah, no, we want to go through that again. the person being reversed is Kennedy or the man giving the oath?
It's Kennedy being reversed.
Okay. All right.
And he's aware that people are watching him. He's aware that his presidency is controversial. And as he's swearing the oath off, he's saying, oh, they're going to be watching me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I buy that.
Yep, that's the way I interpret it. Anyway, okay. One more?
He knew he had lots of enemies.
Yep. Yes, he did. That's how... Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's how I figure it. Okay. So we'll play the next one after the break.
Joining us from Hawaii, Dick Allgaier, one of the world's great remote viewers who was eminently involved in the JFK remote viewing project, although, of course, as a remote viewer, he didn't know what he was being tasked to look at. And what it was Dealey Plaza, November 22nd, 1963. Hello, Dick. Welcome back.
Hello, Jeff. Good to be with you. And hello, David John Oates, Jim Mars.
Howdy.
The gang's all here.
We're all here. Sorry I was a little late to the party. I had a meeting that I had to attend to keep rice in the bowl in the Allgaier household because remote viewing is a hobby. Jim Mars knows that if you get money involved in remote viewing, it tends to mess up the process. So.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Keep rice in the bowl and pot in the jar. I understand. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Anyway, I heard most of the first hour, and David has had again fabulous reversals. David, your work is just amazing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to be recognized after 33 years.
All right. We have 1 hour to go, so let's go to it.
Yeah, we've got a few more verses to get through yet. Now, you remember how, Jeff, on your program, I've talked about premonition and future events appearing in reverse speech? Well,
yes.
Listen to this reversal on Kennedy on his inauguration speech.
The slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world.
Well, this reversal sent chills down me. Head is hitting the car.
Head is hitting the car. Head is hitting the car.
You hear that?
Oh, my.
Wow.
Oh, my.
That, How about that?
That's really scary.
Yep. I couldn't believe when I heard that. I thought,
His subconscious already knew.
Yep.
There is no time as we perceive it.
That's true. All of everything is just a ball of energy, and your perception is just wherever your consciousness happens to be. I use the analogy of the phonograph needle. You're the needle, and you're in just one of the grooves of the universe.
Yeah.
Play that again, David, please.
Yeah, okay. So here's the forwards.
The slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world.
And here it is. Head is hitting the car.
Head is hitting the car. Head is hitting the car. Head is hitting the car.
Every letter, every syllable, every word, all correct, undeniable, just unbelievable. Wow.
So here he is, having a premonition of what's going to happen to him.
David, have you worked with people and asked them, you probably have, to forecast their own future?
Oh, yes, I have. Oh, yeah, I did.
What kind of results do you get?
You'll get reversals talking about their future, and they have always been uncannily accurate.
Oh, my. Wow. See, that's a part of reverse speech that doesn't get talked about enough.
No. Well, I've got lots of examples to illustrate it. Let me get some together and we'll do a show on it.
Please. That's fascinating. You can tell your own future. Wow. Yep. But does that mean that your future is immutable or not? Are there multiple futures? That's the question.
Oh, heavens. That's a philosophical question.
Yeah.
I can't answer it this time.
Maybe Jim can. Go ahead, Jim.
Of course I can. Now, the question is, do you want it to be correct? But hey, David, have you ever reverse speeched yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, many times. Oh, yeah.
Well, could you figure out what your fate is, by reverse speech?
Well, that's something he probably doesn't want to know, Jim. Come on.
I don't think I want to know that.
When I'm dealing with remote viewing, I thought, wow, I could remote view and see what happens to me in the future, but I've never done it because I always chicken out. I'm not sure I want to know.
That's the point. Yeah.
What about Dick? Dick, have you ever remote viewed yourself in the future?
Not consciously, but Jim, we're gonna try that out in an upcoming project, as you know. I have done reversals on myself remote viewing. I took a recorded remote viewing session, and I was doing some editing on it, and I was playing it backwards and forward, not to do a reversal, but just to find an endpoint for editing.
Right.
And I heard myself speaking clearly. I said those to David. If we have time, I'll play one later toward the end of the hour.
It's really fascinating.
Wow. Okay, that was a bone chiller, David, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I felt that when I found it. I've been waiting to play this one on your show.
Wow.
All right, so here we have another one, another premonition.
We have proposed the elimination of all arms and military bases in a fair and effective disarmament treaty. We are prepared to discuss new proposals.
And here he says, he's the martyr to get.
He's the martyr to be kept. He's the martyr to be kept.
See, he knew.
He's talking about himself there.
He knew that the proposals he was putting forward are very radical.
Imminent danger. Wow.
Yeah, very dangerous. And here his unconscious is giving him another warning. Okay, so there's two we've got, which is just really quite amazing. So,
people are asking right now, well, if this is all true, how can we use this to help us live better, safer, more productive, happy lives? And the answer is learn how to be a remote, not a remote viewer, but learn that too, a reverse speech expert. And you can learn that. David has a course. He'll teach you. Yep. And there's an app involved that you can put on your smartphone and make it far easier to find reversals on yourself and on those around you. But there's a caveat here, and you've got to be careful. Sometimes you can misinterpret, and you can tell a friend, a loved one, a family member, a spouse, a coworker, hey, you know what you just said, and you may be wrong. So you've got to use a very reserved, cautious, respectful attitude. But this can be learned, and you can use it to your advantage.
Yep. All right, let's move on to just some general reversals on Kennedy, which was finding him was very difficult, but I did manage to find a few. Here he is at the Democratic Convention.
The Republican nominee, of course, is a young man, but his approach is as old as McKinley. His party is the party of the past, the party of memories.
And here he says, new men we'd offer.
Your red beat off. Your red beat off.
And again.
Your red beat off.
So he's offering a new approach.
A new beginning, as it were.
New beginning. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a new beginning. Yeah, so it's a nice congruent reversal. Okay. All right, here he is, still from the convention, I think.
The belief that the rights of man...
Oh, no, this is his inaugural speech.
The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God.
And here he says, yes, obey the power.
Yes, obey the power.
Oh, that's not very clear.
Yes, obey the power.
That was not very clear, sorry.
Yes, obey the power.
Anyway, obey the power of God, basically. You know, he's just being congruent, essentially.
Sounded to me like he was saying, give me the power.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. All right, here, I'll play it again. Hang on. Let's play it again.
Yes, obey the power.
Yeah.
Yes, obey the power.
There's something else in there.
Yeah, give to me the power.
Is that an M? It sounds like it. Let's hear it again.
Okay, all right.
Yes, obey the power.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, obey the power.
Yep.
Yes,
Give to me the power.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't very clear when I played it. I could tell. Oh, that doesn't say that.
Good catch, Jim.
Yeah, good one. Excellent. All right, here he is talking about. Anyway, let's just play it.
But neither can two great and powerful groups of nations take comfort from our present course. Both sides overburdened by the cost of modern weapons, both rightly alarmed by the steady spread of the deadly atom.
And here he simply says, I talk it up.
So
he's just emphasizing his... So he's just emphasizing his point, you know. He's, simple as that. Okay. All right, here we have an insight into JFK's psyche.
I got the leadership coming back at 5 this afternoon. Then we begin this blockade. Then we will continue the surveillance.
Oh, okay. He's talking about the blockade of Cuba.
Uh-huh.
He says backwards, I send naked woman.
Send naked woman. Send naked woman.
There we go.
Send naked woman.
Just insight into his character. His sexual indiscretions were well known. So that's just.
Where was he going to send the naked woman?
I don't know. I just found it and chuckled and included it in.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Yep. All right, here he is giving his speech about the blockade.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba.
And here he simply says, I'm nervous.
I bet he was.
Clear as a bell.
Everybody lived through that time. Everybody was nervous.
Yep, I know. Quite a understandable reversal to have. And
wow.
from the same speech.
It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response.
And here he says, did we mess it up?
We messed it up. We messed it up.
And again.
Wow, he drew the line, and he's asking, his subconscious is asking, did we go too far with this ultimatum?
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. And, of course, he didn't. History showed that he was successful, okay?
Right.
All right. Someone's telling me...
let me throw in right here, because, I lived through that, and everybody did, and we all thought at the time, oh, my God, we're on the brink of nuclear war. And number two, Kennedy, caused the Soviets to blink, and they turned back, and what a hero he was. But let me tell you something. The truthful thing was, and Khrushchev finally admitted all this, it was a deal. Khrushchev said in his memoirs that he never expected to be able to leave offensive missiles in Cuba. They sent them there, and they started setting them up for one purpose, and that was to wring a concession out of the United States
and
that we would not invade Cuba again.
The other thing, you know what the other thing was? That we had to withdraw I think they were Jupiter missiles from Turkey.
Yeah, from Turkey, yes.
Yep, because we had put missiles.
It was simply a deal, but it was a good deal because it was taking a step back on both sides,
right,
from nuclear confrontation. In fact, people don't realize this because they didn't assassinate Khrushchev, but it was only a few months after Kennedy's assassination that Khrushchev was deposed, sent out to retire on the farm somewhere. He was gone. And that's because Kennedy and Khrushchev were seriously reaching an accord, and they both wanted to end the Cold War. And, of course, the bankers and the military and the defense establishment didn't want to do that.
That's fascinating and absolutely correct. So that's what nobody remembers. We essentially put missiles on the Soviet Union's Cuba, right on their front porch.
Well,
and it was intolerable for them.
We're doing the same thing today.
You bet.
When the old communist Soviet Union collapsed, if you'll stop and remember, the Russians were occupying all of Eastern Europe. And when communism collapsed, they said, okay, all right, it's kind of over with. We will pull out of Eastern Europe if you will promise that you will not expand NATO. And we said, okay. So they did. They voluntarily, the Russian troops left Eastern Europe, okay? And what have we done? We've expanded NATO all the way to Baltic states, all the way to the Ukraine. All right, we have placed our own missiles in Russia's own little Cuba.
Yep, absolutely.
There's a great book called JFK and the Unspeakable: Why He Died and Why It Matters by James Douglas. It explains a lot of what was going on between Kennedy and Khrushchev and the personal deals they had going on.
That's an interesting comment, Dick, and Jim, thanks for bringing that out, that they were both headed on a convergent course toward real-world peace to de-escalate, and they were both removed. No money in peace, folks.
In fact, if you stop and think about it, the most famous of the peacemakers, Gandhi, Jesus, they all get killed off.
Every one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, not good. Listen, I'm going to skip a few of the Kennedy reversals here for the sake of time. But you can go to my website, listen to it. I'm going to play a few, 2 or 3 more, but they're all congruent. I did not find a single incongruent reversal on him.
Huh.
Surprise, surprise! They assassinated him. We get an honest president who means what he says, and they get rid of him. So
Well, they tried to get rid of Reagan too. Remember, and he was trying to light out on his own path as well, to a large degree.
Yeah, and we tend to forget that if Hinckley's bullet had been, or if it was Hinckley, that's another whole show I can talk about.
Yeah.
The Hinckley had a 6-shot revolver, and yet there were 7 shots fired, as recorded by all 3 TV networks. So, but that's another whole story. But if that bullet had been just a fraction of an inch to one side, it would have hit Reagan's heart. He would have died, and we would have had George Herbert Walker Bush 8 years earlier.
And that was the plan, folks.
And that was the plan.
And I think your 7th shot.
Anyway, because the big scandal of Reagan's administration, of course, was the Iran-Contra scandal.
Right.
And that was where we were swapping bad arms to the Sandinistas in exchange for taking their cocaine and drugs back into the United States. And all of the documents that got signed on that came. In fact, if you remember, Colonel North testified, well, all the time I had the approval of the president, and everybody went, oh, well, okay. But nobody bothered to ask him which president, because all that documents that had to do with the Iran-Contra scandal were signed by Bush, not by Reagan.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
What we think we know and what's real is sometimes diametrically the opposite.
Okay. Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'll play 3 more on Kennedy. Then I want to get on to Billy Graham and Ford's pardon of Bush. Not Bush, Nixon. All right. Here he is warning people about the vast industrial military complex.
vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
And here he says, "Here a villain."
Here a villain.
Here a villain. Here a villain.
Right where it says military. There you go.
Yeah, he knew. He knew who was against him.
Yep, he did indeed. Yep, he did indeed. And here's the last one I'll play on him. He's talking about disarmament and peace.
It would create machinery to keep the peace, as it destroys the machinery of war.
And here he says, the new mission.
Gideoniship.
Gideoniship. Gideoniship.
So he was on a path to
he was.
For total disarmament.
Yeah.
And he was aware the military were against him. I believe that's part of the reason why he was assassinated, why Eisenhower was part of the whole group. So they're all involved, folks. Now, here we have a really strange one. This one set me on a double flip. Because I'm searching YouTube looking for any relevant tracks, and I see a conversation between Billy Graham and Richard Nixon attacking President Kennedy for Vietnam. So I thought, oh yeah, let's reverse this and see and to see what I find. So the first thing Billy Graham is he talks about. Oh, I'm not too sure. Actually, let's just play it.
It would create machinery to keep the peace.
Well, okay. You know what? It would help if I actually opened up the Billy Graham file.
It would. To make it sound more like Billy Graham, actually.
Yeah, we do need to settle it. Where is it? E, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. What? Where is he? Oh, he's under Billy. Right, sorry. Okay, here we go.
And then the nation, which is the world's leader, is thrown into a crisis. And the whole world feels the crisis.
Okay. No, this is Billy Graham. On the death of JFK. Now, I don't know whether Billy Graham was violently against JFK becoming president. He organized Protestants across the country to vote him out because he was a Catholic, which Billy Graham didn't like at all.
Right.
So now he's talking about JFK's assassination, and he says backwards, "I feel proud of it."
There's an extra syllable hanging out there on the end, probably the next word.
Oh, let's have a listen.
I feel proud of it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there is.
It just needs to be edited off.
Yeah, anyway. So that was a rather strange reversal. I thought, gee, what on earth is he... Why would he be proud of the assassination?
Well, it sounds like a religious perspective. He doesn't like Catholics, and he's happy he's gone.
You're exactly right.
Well, I can attest to the fact that prior to Kennedy's election, my parents were Southern Baptists, and I went to the Southern Baptist Church, and we were told from the pulpit that if Kennedy was elected, the Pope would run the country. There was a lot of anti-Catholic sentiment at the time.
Yeah.
So Billy Graham is one of the prominent leaders of the
right.
Protestant Christianity. You can see where his allegiance would lie.
Okay, let's play a clanger on him. Here he is with this conversation with Nixon talking about Kennedy.
Well, I'm saying that the first time I ever heard of our involvement was 4 days before he was inaugurated, playing golf with him. He said, I quote, "We cannot allow Laos in South Vietnam to fall to the communists."
Okay, so he's talking about playing golf with Kennedy 4 days before he was inaugurated. And he says backwards, "To be awful sad, Hoover shoot them." And again. So I interpret that as he knew he had knowledge of the plot.
Beforehand.
Absolutely.
And he
right.
named Hoover as being the key to the whole actual execution of the operation.
Now, he was very good friends with Nixon during the Eisenhower administration.
Wow.
Remained very good friends with Nixon all his life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying Billy Graham was involved, but
No, but he knew.
that he knew.
Apparently, a hell of a lot of people knew, Jim, or at least knew pieces of it.
Well, if you'll recall, there was that note back in the 50s, or actually in the late 40s, I think it was, to the House, to the Un-American Activities Committee, saying, we understand you're going to call one Jack Rubenstein of Chicago to testify, and before your committee, we ask you not to call him in public testimony because he's providing information functions for Congressman Richard Nixon. So Jack Ruby and Nixon were somehow connected.
Oh.
Unbelievable. And now you have Billy Graham implicated in the whole thing. I mean, I was shocked when I found
Well,
that.
if he and Nixon were good friends, really good friends, Nixon probably took him into his confidence with a lot of secret material.
That's what I started to say, David. I mean, here, if you grew up in America like Jeff and I did, you'll know that, excuse me, at a certain level, it's like a small town. Everybody knows everybody else, and they kind of know who's tied to who.
Yeah. Well,
you don't think about that, and it's hard to imagine that because, like right now we got 300 million people here in this huge country. But if you live in a small town, everybody that's ever lived in a small town understands it. There's always a pecking order, and it might be the police chief, or it might be the newspaper editor, or the banker, but somebody that's usually at the top of the pecking order, and then it drops on down. And the guy at the top, he doesn't even necessarily have to issue orders. He can just kind of let it be known what his feelings are, and everybody else generally goes along. If they think it's going to be for the good of everybody. Well, we all understand that if you live in a small town. But all you got to do is extrapolate that up to the United States, and then actually even up to the world. In the world, there is a small town. There's just a few thousand people.
Mm-hmm.
They know each other. They know who's who. They know who's in contact with each other.
Sure.
And they act as a mass mind. They go the same direction in their thoughts.
Well said. Yeah.
all right, some more on Billy Graham. This is from the same phone conversation.
Who's this, Billy? This is Billy Graham. How are you? I want to tell you that that's by far the best anybody has done on Vietnam. And you had me in tears. I really feel that...
Well, I was in tears myself, you know.
And here he says, Knesset to laugh it up.
Knesset to laugh up.
Or to laugh up. So what's Israel got to do with all of this? I don't know, but there he is. He's talking about Israel, and then he has one other reversal about Israel.
Yeah, that's what killed the whole, that opened the whole thing.
The whole thing. And I said this sentence, I said, many of the present doves in the Senate were not then so dovish. Even Senator Fulbright, who introduced the now famous Tonkin Resolution.
And this one says, I know Knesset was bad.
I know Knesset was bad. I know Knesset was bad.
Wow, it's clear. Yeah.
Now, I know there was another conversation I found with Billy Graham and Nixon where they just hated the Jews. And they were
well, Nixon, it's well known from the White House tapes that Nixon did not like Israel at all. Correct.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So,
and neither did Billy Graham.
Neither did Billy Graham.
No.
So here we have Billy Graham involved in the coup. Can you believe that? That's just absolutely staggering to me. So,
well, I find it hard to believe that he was actually involved directly, but I do think that he was in a position to kind of understand what went on, and whether he agreed with it or not, he knew enough to just go along with it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Sorry, I shouldn't say the word involved. All right, now we have some interesting reversals on the pardoning of Richard Nixon by President Ford. Here is the Ford's.
And I have sought such guidance and searched my own conscience with special diligence to determine the right thing for me to do with respect to my predecessor in this place, Richard Nixon.
Okay, now this reversal is cryptic. It uses a metaphor. I almost didn't use it, but it's so clear, and I think I understand what the metaphor is. So Reversal says, "Assassin, I've come to capture the wood."
Assassin, I've come to capture the wood. Assassin, I've come to capture the wood.
And again.
Assassin, I've come to capture the wood.
Did you hear that there?
Yeah.
Okay, mine too. Okay, so the first word is assassin. So we know it's got to do with, I assume, present Kennedy.
Uh-huh.
So what's wood? What does wood mean around the Kennedy assassination? Well, the wooden picket fence is the thing that I get. So assassin.
Or the grassy knoll, which was has been called a park and a wood.
Okay,
because
all right.
it was trees and brush and bushes.
Huh.
Yep,
all
all
right.
of that stuff. Yeah, all of that. Okay, so what he's saying cryptically, and it's interesting that this is now 11 years after the event, so the event has moved from being straightforward English to a metaphor. And he's saying, look, we've got to capture the wood. We've got to keep this secret. We've got to bring this into us. Assassin, you're the assassin. You've been involved in the plot, and we're going to. I'm come to keep this secret. That's the way I can interpret it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, very good.
Yep. That's metaphors are always very difficult, but.
Well, you're the maestro, so you got it.
Yeah. Yes, no, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confident with that. With that interpretation. And here, you remember how I said Nixon said the secret?
Yes.
Remember how we played that reversal?
Yes.
Okay, so here we have another one.
The courts might well hold that Richard Nixon had been denied due process, and the verdict of history would even more be inconclusive with respect to those charges.
And here he says, your secret.
Your secret. Your secret. Your secret.
Now, that could refer to some Watergate stuff, but following along from the assassin reversal and the secret that
Pretty
Nixon
close,
referred to
yeah.
before, I think it's still about the JFK assassination, and I think the pardoning was a payoff for his silence.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's the way I interpret it anyway. Okay, then we've got, where is it? There's a reversal missing. Hang on. Says,
Find it online?
yeah, I'll have to go to my page. Sorry, I didn't know I missed these reversals out. Graham, Ripples of the Coup. Okay, here we go. We're playing it online.
In this, I dare not depend upon my personal sympathy as a longtime friend of the former president, nor my professional judgment as a lawyer, and I do not.
And this one simply says, onward gun.
Onward gun.
Onward gun.
Wow.
Onward gun.
Pretty grim.
Sorry?
That sounds
Pretty grim.
plain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plain.
Just keeping the secret going. It's
Yeah.
onward, the secret, assassin, I've come to capture the wood, we're keeping this whole thing secret, onward gun, and then he says this one here we go.
I do believe that the buck stops here, that I cannot rely upon public opinion polls to tell me what is right.
And here we have reference to the deal. I stop with the deal.
Huh.
I'll stop with that deal. I'll stop with to tell me what is right.
Oh, what happened there? Hang on.
Flipped over.
I'll stop with that deal.
I'll stop with that deal. I'll stop with that deal.
Okay, so a deal was made, and he's pardoning Nixon. It all stops now.
Yeah.
And this is all the stuff we've seen about a deal. Comes out. This is about the fifth reversal.
I guess that's what they may have referred to it as amongst themselves. The deal.
The deal. Yeah.
So I still got two more reversals playing this one, but I'm on the firm conviction that Nixon's pardoning was all part of the whole coup.
Oh, sure.
that took place.
They planned this thing
fits.
from before.
It all fits. You've got the Kennedy assassination, followed by all the people that were killed off during, right after that, and then during the Garrison, the way the Garrison investigation was torpedoed at the federal level, and then we move on into Nixon, resurging, coming back into government, getting paid off, getting the presidency. The Vietnam War goes full blast. And then we get Nixon, finally, it became so obvious to so many people, the corruption and the crime that was going on, that Nixon was about to be impeached, so he resigns. They put Gerald Ford in there, and then, of course, before that, they had to kill Martin Luther King, not because of the racial situation, but because he was starting to mount a million-man march on Washington anti-war, going against the war. So it all has to do with the military-industrial complex, the national security intelligence state, and all of these go right on up. In fact, it was all the way up past Jimmy Carter and then Reagan, and that the U.S. elections were decided by gunfire. They shot George Wallace when he was making a run, and then you had Sarah Jane Moore. You had the attacks on Ford, you had the attacks on Reagan.
Yeah.
It was a banana republic.
And
gunfire decided the elections.
Yeah. We killed people over here, lots of them.
Well, look, I can tell you my investigation into all of this has only just begun. I'm hooked now. I want to solve all of this.
Well, you found some astonishing things, David. It's amazing, and made even 10 times more valuable because they link up with Dick's work and remote viewing, but 52 years of research. Come on, it all fits like a hand in a glove. Perfect.
Yeah.
Obvious.
Well, like I said, it's just the truth, and anybody study it. I don't know of anybody who is independent-minded, who is not connected to any government or any university, who have actually studied the case in any great detail, who hasn't come to the conclusion that it was a coup d'etat. That's what I was teaching at my course at the University of Texas at Arlington back starting in 1976, and that continued up until 2007, and I never had anyone. I'm sure there were some people who took the course, heard the conclusions, and kind of wondered, gee, I wonder if that's really true, but I never heard anybody just absolutely say, no, that's not right, it can't be that.
All right, let's continue on. Here we have Ford pardoning Nixon still.
I do believe with all my heart and mind and spirit that I, not as president, but as a humble servant of God, will receive justice without mercy if I fail to show mercy.
And here he says, there's some more blank. And that's a four-letter word with S.
Yes, sir, more shit. Yes, sir, more shit.
And again.
Yes, sir, more shit.
So this doesn't mop it all up. Not by a long shot. He might have tried to, but there's still a whole lot more stuff that has to come out. Okay?
Yeah.
And then we have Ford. Here we go. Here we have Bush appearing again.
Finally, I feel that Richard Nixon and his loved ones have suffered enough and will continue to suffer no matter what I do, no matter what we, as a great and good nation, can do together to make his goal of peace come true.
And this one says, Bush mocked, seek the Lord.
Bush mocked, seek the Lord. Bush mocked, seek the Lord.
I don't really know what that means, though.
I don't either.
Mocked, seek the Lord.
That's out of left field. I wonder what he was thinking, his subconscious. That's odd.
Well, I can't quite make it out. Is he saying don't?
Now, he's saying seek the Lord at the end.
Yeah, but is it don't seek the Lord?
No, I think it just says seek the Lord. Play it again, please.
Yeah, okay. Oops.
Bush mocked.
Bush mocked, seek the Lord.
It's just Bush mocked, seek the Lord.
Seek the Lord.
Maybe he was having conscious issues. Maybe
Bush mocked. M-O-C-K-E-D. Bush mocked.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he might have been having
Here's a quick observation from Hawaii, and that is that in all of this, the Bush family sure crops up a lot.
Too much.
In all of this, yeah.
They're all over it. They're all over it.
Yeah.
And I've got one last reversal to play, which just follows along perfectly from Dick's comment. This is from George Bush Jr., George Bush 41, talking about how America was just attacked.
That an act of war was declared on the United States of America.
And here he says, backwards rule the planet, Dad.
Well,
you don't suppose that Bush 41 had anything to do with that, do you? Wow. That guy, he's been in it since the end of World War II. They pulled him right into the OSS then, and he never got out of it.
Yes, all through it.
Well,
so there we go,
the
gentlemen.
patriot Prescott Bush was a powerful senator from Connecticut who helped create the CIA.
There you go. Well,
so the Bush family's been part and parcel of it, you know, and it's been well documented how that the CIA, particularly early on, was just a Eastern establishment good old boy network, and of course the the Bushes, who were the proteges of the Harrimans, would have fit right in.
Yep. Yeah, so there you go.
Folks, anybody's listening here, you're getting information straightforward, documentary-wise, and kind of metaphysically through reverse speech and through, that you're not going to hear anywhere else. You're not going to hear all this truth and all these connections in the establishment media. They're just too far under control.
Never hear it. There's nothing that doesn't fit that David has uncovered here. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing that doesn't fit your work or Dick's work. It's all there. It's just overwhelming. It really is. It just kind of leaves, I feel just tired listening to it sometimes. I mean, not tired like I want to go to sleep, but just emotionally tired because it's all there. Yeah. You just say, my God, it keeps coming and coming and coming. It's all there.
Yeah. And this is what Trump is up against. He's up against the people.
He's up against the death machine. Yeah.
Yep. That's why there's so many people concerned over his health and welfare.
You're damn right. Yep.
And as well, they probably should be.
Yeah, I think he should be too. Yeah. Yeah, we've got an interesting election campaign coming up. I don't know. Cruz just won with Wisconsin.
Well, we don't know about that. 2 polls yesterday had Trump up, one by 10 points, and this is an enormous loss, and vote fraud is too easily perpetrated in this country now, David. They use smartphone apps to tally and count votes and send them on. There's too much potential, too many open doors for somebody to get in there and vote scam the whole thing. It's just the margin of victory is too big. It doesn't make sense for me.
Well, I've got some interesting reversals for you on Friday on Priebus.
Oh, you got some on Priebus. Good.
Yeah, I did him myself, Jeff.
Oh, very good.
Oh, is he a nice corrupt official?
Oh, he and Karl Rove and the Republican National Committee, RNC, they're running this effort to destroy Donald Trump and take away, to disenfranchise the Americans' right to vote and have in office who they want. They're literally trying to pick their own people, and they probably will. I hate to say it. They moved Paul Ryan into the Speaker's position. He took that maybe with a promise that this could have, in fact, happened this way, and they're being now very carefully, but they're doing it. They're talking about Paul Ryan as being the fresh face that they could introduce at the convention.
And don't take this as an endorsement of the Democrats, because they're even worse. They got probably one of the biggest New World Order
of course. Well,
in the whole world. The one who in the early 90s was at the Bilderberg meeting being introduced to everybody coming in the door, which was their time-honored method of introducing their proteges to the international globalists who are trying to run the world, and of course that was Hillary Clinton.
And she, the one who wants to shoot down Vladimir Putin's Russian Air Force jets. Right now, over Syria. She wants World War III.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be right on top of it, Jeff, as I
Well,
always
I'm
am.
really grateful. This guy, Priebus, is a big player, just like Karl Rove, and whatever you got out of him, I'll be looking forward to hearing on Friday. All of us will, because it'll tell us where we're going. I just sent you another piece of video on Priebus, and I think it might be something to look at. But this is all being orchestrated at such an ugly, dark level. It's just awful.
Well, these are the people. These are the people who killed JFK, who are still in power.
The same people. Thank you.
Still alive. Still
same
organized.
mentality. Yep.
Yep. America is no longer a democracy. It hasn't been a democracy since 1963. And I don't know why the people aren't up in arms, but Jim said why. It's too many years past now. So, I don't know.
You're correct.
It's hard to accept. I'm a guy that grew up thinking our government was legitimate. And, I mean, this is the United States. We're the good guys. And, back in the 60s, I was a young kid, but it seemed like we thought it was a more genteel time and less corrupt. But they've all just been gangsters all along.
More genteel, yeah. Well, guys, here's the whole thing. Believe it or not, this is actually voiced by none other than Napoleon Bonaparte. And he once said, "It is not necessary to bury the truth. It is sufficient merely to delay it until nobody cares." And there you have it. There's the Kennedy assassination.
My.
They have obfuscated it to the point 52 years later when the only people that truly care about it are people over 50 who remember it. And and that's about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. By the way, there's, you know about this Temple of Baal? Have you been following that story?
No.
All right. It's an ancient temple. It's a satanic temple is what it is. And let me see if I can find these stories. I have,
Temple of what?
Temple of, Satan. It's evil. The Baal Temple.
Are you talking about Baal, like B-A-A-L?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, in New York?
Yes. Now hold on. There's more to this than that. Now, do you see is there a cross in New York City? No. Why is there a replica of the Temple of Baal, or Baal, B-A-A-L, going up in Times Square? Here are 4 or 5 headlines. I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow night with someone who has sent me about 20 pictures of this thing. It's a replica of the Temple of Baal, and it's up in Times Square. There's also one going into Trafalgar Square in London. Now, guess what? Look at this headline. The Temple of Baal coming to New York will be followed, Jim, get this one, by hundreds more of them all over the world. They are getting ready to de facto announce that this is a Luciferian satanic planet. They're putting these all over the world, in major cities all over the world. Temple of Baal. And we'll be talking about that tomorrow night with a lot of pictures.
Well, keep in mind, as I understand it, these are only replicas, but then...
Oh, absolutely, but then evil symbol's an evil symbol, right?
You put up a cross, you could say, well, that's just a replica of the cross. It's still a same thing with the crescent moon of the Muslims. It's not the original one, but it's a replica.
Right. All right, this temple, by the way, you know...
I'm sorry to interrupt. On this subject, I wanted to ask Jim Marrs about this. In my Kennedy assassination video, this never made the documentary that Courtney Brown published. It hit the cutting room floor, but when I did the site survey of Dealey Plaza, I didn't know it was Dealey Plaza, but I was drawn to an obelisk. I said, there's an obelisk here, and this is a New World Order site with like a ritual site. And we never put that in the document. There is an obelisk there, isn't there, Jim? In
well,
Dealey Plaza?
I do know Dealey Plaza was the site of the first Masonic temple in Dallas. And then another thing that I know for sure that is kind of an oddity, too, is that Dallas lays on the 33-degree parallel. So there's lots of
there is a lot of symbolism
going on there.
In an attempt to, quote, preserve history, 2 exact replicas of the 50-foot arch that stood at the entrance to the temple will be erected in April 2016 in Times Square, New York, and Trafalgar Square in London. Needless to say, a lot of people are quite disturbed by this. In ancient times, child sacrifice and bisexual orgies were common practices at the altars of Baal, and now we are putting up a monument of worship to this false god in the heart of our most important city, with hundreds more of these stone replicas to be erected in cities around the world. This is a de facto admission that this is a satanic Luciferian-run planet. That's my view.
Dick, in answer to your question, yes, there is an obelisk in Dealey Plaza. It's out the semicircular arc there where it identifies that as the birthplace of Dallas. And the whole Dealey Plaza is named after Joe Dealey, who was, I believe, the founder of the Dallas Morning News.
Yeah, well, it's another layer of this whole thing that Jeff was just bringing up of who's really running things.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that there's just all kinds of Masonic considerations. I mean, Dealey Plaza itself, as you well know, Dick, is a triangle. It's a pyramid. You know, it's a triangle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, picture Houston Street, and then the 3 streets coming in. There's Elm and Main and Commerce, and they all converge there at Houston Street. And from there, they dive down and go and connect together at the Triple Underpass. So it's a triangle.
Well, okay. Thank you again, David John Oates, first of all, for making all this possible. Just really a monumental crowning achievement in 33 years of research into reverse speech and the incredible expressions of the subconscious mind.
All right, Jeff, my pleasure.
Well done. And Dick Allgaier, thank you, sir. And I'm looking forward very much to the project that we're working on now, which is going to shake people up too. That's going to be fun. I hope to have all that done, my part of it here, by Monday, Tuesday. So we'll do that. And James, I've just sent all 3 of you 5 or 6 stories on this temple replica that they're putting up in hundreds of cities around the world. A temple to evil, child sacrifice, bestiality, bisexuality, you name it. It's all there in that temple. Ugly stuff. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Dick. You guys are always great.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Aloha.
Bye-bye.
And thanks to everyone out there who's been listening in. We'll have this program up at rense.com. It'll be at reversespeech.com as well. And we have just completed 5 hours of radio explaining the whole story, at least reasonably speaking, the whole story of the JFK assassination. Good night. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care.